What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. The world is made by people that do things. And equally, that doesn't mean you have to always have action. I think sometimes inaction can be as loud as action. I had no idea what Silicon Valley was. Not a clue. It made me feel like there was a world that was bigger than what I already knew. It opened my mind up totally to different ways of working, different people, different ways of living.
In this episode, we speak to Conrad Lennard. Conrad leads product management for financial crime solutions for Mastercard across Europe. From Stanford to Cambridge to Durham University, gets all these wonderful different degrees and then ends up at Featurespace, where he is in their sales organisation, does brilliantly well there, and then moves to Mastercard.
I get a huge amount of energy from people, and my passion is in helping other people fundamentally. And so what's amazing about Mastercard is just the sheer scale of the business.
Part of why I love this is because we were introduced via somebody who knows somebody who I know, and you just went for it. And part of the reason why I'm excited that you went for it is because your knee has been absolutely buckled. So this is not your first time out of the house. That makes this seem more important than it is. But this is like one of the first things you've done.
I don't get out much. I really don't. And it's my sister's birthday today, so happy birthday to my sister.
Bang. I don't know how long this is going to take to go out, but you can just...
Right.
Well, on that basis, thanks for coming to do it.
Happy Mother's Day as well.
On
that basis
all of it.
too. Yeah,
Merry
just
Christmas.
get them all in right now.
So I'm pleased you've taken the time to come and do this despite your knee. So how did you actually injure your knee?
I'm playing a game called squash.
Okay.
Which I've been told is not the coolest game to say you've had a knee injury, significant knee
I
injury.
mean, it depends if you were playing it in a dynamic way.
How would you define dynamic in squash?
The sort of thing that results in a knee injury.
That's it, yeah.
Good.
It was an aggressive attempted backhand. My best mate, Guy Wolf, we were playing at Lord's, of all places, so it was a fancy place to do your knee in, which is great fun, but did tear the ACL and the meniscus in 2 places. So I've definitely been through the ringer with the knee. We're 2 months in. But you've had some nasty injuries as well, you've been telling me.
I've had a couple. I'm just bored of being in hospitals. I do less extreme... No, actually, that's not true. I do things that could result in injuries less now. I still do extreme stuff. But I know your pain. So... who are you? Who do you work for, and what is your job? Let's start there.
Well, I'm Conrad.
Yeah.
I work for Mastercard.
What's your job?
My job, day to day, I sell software. I sell risk software.
Gotcha.
To banks, predominantly.
What do they call that job at Mastercard?
Currently, they call it product management and enablement, which actually is not so long when it comes to.
That's one of the shortest corporate job titles.
Director, comma. Product management enablement, comma, services.
Okay, so you're going to banks and you're saying, hey, we at Mastercard have got software that we think can help you.
Spot on.
Bang. That isn't what you plan to do, I should imagine, which is how we do this. So in fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually really excited about this because I just know you're going to be hilarious. Quick fire questions, which have been brilliant in other episodes, and you said you heard a couple of them. So, if you could have any job in the world for a day, just for a day, 24 hours, what would it be and why?
Manager of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
On a good day or a bad day?
Any day.
Really? Are you a big Spurs fan?
Massive, fanatical.
I thought you were going to say you're an Arsenal fan and you wanted to be a Tottenham fan.
That would be funny. Or something like, I don't know, professional Krispy Kreme donut taster would be quite a good one as well. Or unprofessional. Just a donut taster of some description.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yes. I love that. Do you feel as though that's a piece of advice that the prominence of it factors in your decision making as you go through life?
Increasingly so.
Yeah.
I think for a long time it felt harder to take that advice. It's very easy to dispense that advice.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
But I do think it's important to note that the world is made by people that do things.
100%.
Generally. And equally, that doesn't mean you have to always have action. I think sometimes inaction can be as loud as action. You know, you're
agree.
someone that sat through a lot of commercial negotiations, for example, and they say that actually the power often lies with the person that says the least. That can be viewed as action itself, is
true.
sort of saying less.
That's a wonderful balance, and poignant, actually. What's the one thing you're really proud of?
My family's resiliency in the face of tough times, always.
I love that. A collective resilience is a special thing.
That's it. I think so. The ability, I'm proud of my wider unit's ability to come together when times are tough.
Love that. I've never had that. I've never even heard anybody talk about collective resilience as something that they're personally proud of. Beautiful answer. And the most ridiculous thing, I've got a feeling that this one's going to be ridiculous for you. What's the most ridiculous thing you ever believed as a child?
I mean, there's a few I could take. I'll give you, very simply, I did think that when I went to football, when my dad said he was going to see football, that he was effectively going to a big cinema. That there was no such thing as an actual pitch, that he would go and effectively watch a match in front of
you just upgrade the TV at home by going to the cinema.
Basically, yeah. And so when I went for the first time, walk up the old East Stand at Spurs and was sort of looking out over the pitch,
yeah,
I just took my breath away. I couldn't believe what
How
I was
old were you
seeing.
when you first went to watch Spurs?
7.
Do you know, I went to watch Spurs for my 7th birthday, and it was Tottenham versus Sunderland, and my mum, I don't know how she did it, she must have sent a letter to someone, but she got a happy birthday Liam, age 7, and Teddy Sheringham scored a penalty against Sunderland in that game. But it was that same era. We could have been at the same game.
Let's hope we were.
Let's hope we were. So, you do this job now where you're selling risk and everything else to banks, but like, as I say, nobody expects to do this stuff. What was school like? Where was school, and what was school like for you? Were you academic? How did it all start? Like secondary school wise, do you know what I mean?
I went to a school called Highgate School in North London.
Which you're London born and bred? Apart from
London born and bred.
Amsterdam born,
Amsterdam,
but then, okay,
peas.
fine. Yeah.
Well, they don't speak any Dutch, don't have an EU passport.
Fine. Annoying.
Pretty much now, right? But I went to Highgate in North London and just generally had a great time.
Yeah.
It was one of these amazing schools where they split you up into houses. So I was in Heathgate House and they let you, to basically all my friends were then local and we played football and cricket and all those good things. I did feel a huge amount of academic pressure, despite my wonderful housemaster at the time saying, hey, we're not an exam factory. This isn't what we expect of you.
Where did the pressure come from? Your parents, maybe?
Pressure comes for me from, I want to say self, as in it's all self had the pressure, but I think that's probably slightly flippant in that pressure comes from
All sorts
external
of things.
factors too. So I think just growing up in an environment where there were fairly plentiful things, went on nice holidays as a kid, was very fortunate to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of my peers did as well.
So it's like an aspirational setup, so you're going to want to do well as part of an aspirational setup,
I think
right?
so. And you're trying to figure out what doing well even means. And I think only as you get older do you realise that doing well is really just how you feel inside.
Because you can also overanalyze this stuff, right? Like, why were you academic? Like, I don't know, I just wanted to do well. do you know what I mean?
Pretty
As a
much,
kid,
you
that's-
wanted a confidence boost, wanted to feel good.
Yeah.
And that was fun. But I didn't really know I was, I suppose, fairly academic until after my GCSEs. So I
Right.
did fairly well at them.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was being pushed to kind of apply for Oxford and those sorts of things,
Whoa.
which I didn't get into or didn't do.
Even like, personally speaking, I was never asked to apply for Oxford.
But you were a tremendous athlete.
Yeah. So there was there was other things. There was other things going on. And I did all right in my grades, but like, there's a pressure that comes with that. Or somewhere like Highgate do a load of people get asked to apply for Oxford?
Quite a lot of people do.
Mad.
Yeah, it's big.
So you wrote an application to go to Oxford?
I did, yeah.
But then you didn't get it.
didn't
and did
get
that
in.
wind you up?
Not as much as not getting to Bristol, believe it or not, because I wanted to go to Bristol because I just thought the vibe and the fun was kind of
I
good.
lived there for years. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, it was really fun. I ended up going to Durham in the end, which was wonderful for me. So
I mean,
another
if you're talking about going to Oxford, Bristol, or Durham, you're
I
doing
know.
all right, aren't you?
True, but there's the scales to it. But I think the feeling of an element of rejection in not getting to Oxford definitely pushed me to go and do a master's at Cambridge eventually. So I was 25 when I went to do that. But
I was reading this stuff before we turned up, and I was like, oh my God, this guy. He's done a master's at Cambridge. So you as you leave school, was it just like, I'm going to uni because uni's the next thing. Did
My
you ever
dad said to me
consider
very
work?
simply. My dad very simply said to me, he goes, if you don't go to uni, you're going to have to start paying rent. Which
So that was the deterrent.
pretty much, yeah.
Do you reckon it was more the deterrent of having to pay rent, or that you wanted to go get a degree?
Well, I was the first one in my immediate family that kind of went and do that. So
Oh, fine,
my mum's
okay.
an artist, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So she went to the Royal College of Art and is incredibly
Whoa.
academic and
Yeah.
talented as an artist. But my dad built a successful business
Yeah.
by never going to uni.
Yeah.
And so I think I sat there thinking, well, why do I need to go to uni?
Yeah.
What's it going to do for me? But I have to say it was the best decision
What did
I
you
made.
study?
Geography. Which is a bit like, if you don't know, teach. If you don't
Yeah.
teach P or something.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
if you want to do something random, do geography.
Because I always find the uni thing. So we had a guy on here, Pratap Gautam, who explained to me that in American universities, at the start of university, you still do a range of subjects.
Yeah.
But in English universities, you just go straight into a subject.
Just dive in.
And that is it.
Dive in.
How was that transition from being like broad GCSE, A-level, slightly more restricted, and then like smash, you're just doing geography? That must have been pretty overwhelming, especially at somewhere like Durham, because it's full on.
I actually found it perversely quite refreshing.
Yeah.
Because I enjoyed as things got more specialised.
Okay,
So
yeah.
things like biology,
Yeah.
I could totally leave that
Yeah,
by
yeah,
the
yeah.
time I got to sort of 18.
Yeah.
And geography was advertised to me as something that perfectly bridges the gap between social sciences and humanities, which broken down in plain English for me is basically how do people, places and things interact,
Yeah, nice.
which resonated with me
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I like travelling and I like getting to meet new people around the world.
So as you go to do geography, did you have any idea what that might lead to? Did you have any idea what a career looked like, or was it just, I'm going to uni?
No, and my first job was in insurance. So I joined a group called Aspen Insurance and Reinsurance Group.
So you do uni, and you're like, yeah, this geography thing's all right.
Yeah.
And then you do 3 years? Is that how long?
3 years, that's it.
How funny that I'm like, how long does this career take?
Feels like a long time ago as well.
But
now.
so you do the 3 years, and at the end of 3 years, there's surely like, was there geography, or is the move to Aspen to do insurance a geography specific thing?
I tried to tailor it to be geography specific.
Right.
So when they ask you these weird and wacky questions on these, why are you attracted to the global reinsurance firm Aspen?
Mate, sod off.
Yes, thank you. You've got to then sort of weave in, don't you? Like, wow,
Yeah.
Geography bridges the gap between
Yeah,
the social
yeah, yeah.
sciences and humanities. And in my understanding and ability to read and work with people in a global and diverse environment, I feel perfectly placed to be able to...
Hearing you say it just puts me to sleep. Like, I just think
I
of
know.
those applications.
It's not pretty, it's not fun.
It's not
is
at
it?
all. So was that a
You
grad? Was
have
that
to
a grad
jump through the
scheme?
hoops. And yes, it was a grad scheme.
Okay.
And that grad scheme, as tough as it was, changed my life.
Yeah.
Changed my career, it changed my perspective. And I'm very glad I did it. I did 3 years. I'm actually a chartered insurer. So I'm a ACII charter holder for all things.
What? Like, I'm learning so
It means
much.
I'm
This is-
technically qualified to insure stuff and underwrite things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So,
Yeah.
like, if you get a qualification as like a driving instructor, you can go to a test. But like,
Pretty
what does
much.
it insure? What does that actually mean? Like, what does it give permission? And do you have to refresh that accreditation, or does it just stay with you forever? So it's like, oh, in
I'm meant-
1971, this bloke was accredited for
I'm
insurance. he
meant
can
to
do-
pay the license fee every year to say
Okay.
that's what I can do. So if the CII are watching, I owe some money in the post. It changed my career, that bit of learning about insurance, because insurance moving ahead is a little bit like the merchant acquiring business. A very bright man called Rupert Villas, who was the chairman of the insurance company I got to meet, fortunately, when I was there.
What? So on a grad scheme, you met the chairman of the company. That's
Yeah,
unique,
but
isn't
it was a small group. There were only a couple hundred people at this company.
Okay.
It was one of these Lloyd's specialty
Right.
insurance companies. And he said to me, he goes, Conrad, let me tell you something about insurance. He was a really sort of
Yeah, yeah.
smart guy. He said, the premiums of the many pay for the claims of the few. And it really is as simple as that. And my first job was in something called internal audit,
Right.
which you might be familiar with, or some of the listeners of this podcast might be. And I probably should have got a hint from the name based on what my job was going to be,
Right.
which was very internally focused. So on day 3 of joining the company, because I'm quite fairly extroverted person,
Yeah.
I like meeting people, I said, well, where are my business cards? They sent me to see HR. And HR said, you don't need business cards. This is an internal role.
That's so funny.
And I sort of sat there and looked a bit glum. And they said, look, there's 2 ways this conversation can go really from this point. You can either continue with the grad scheme as it is in internal audit, or we can have a very different conversation. So I thought, took a deep breath, swallowed. Right, back to job at the insurance company. And I managed to negotiate my way eventually into underwriting, which I suppose is what one might consider as the more extroverted bit, where you're meeting clients, you're meeting brokers, you're trying to
did you have
business.
did you have the big
folder, right?
Yeah, I remember seeing people walking around
in
with
and
those
around
and
Lime
thinking,
Street. So I was sat at one of the desks waiting for people with the folders to come along. And when I say sat there, I was a very junior guy, so I was mainly photocopying for people that brought those folders to me.
So that 3-year grad scheme, was it like internal audit and then you find your way and you just happened to get into the more like the bit that suited your personality more? Was there other people that started in that internal audit that just stayed there?
Yes, absolutely. And
Really?
I'm still connected to them to this day. And some of them are obviously incredibly talented and highly successful at what they do because they're very specialised. That mainly happens in the actuarial business.
Yeah.
So, pricing actuaries or claims
Them
actuaries.
people,
those kinds of
their brains.
super smart people. And diverse, interesting, but compliance as well. Some people I know in compliance, they've moved from firm to firm, but they're very much still stuck in that world.
Man.
I mean, I say stuck as if it's a negative thing. They built wonderfully diverse, interesting careers. But
you went away to uni, then did 3 years, which turned out to be 3 years that worked for you, which it could have gone the other way, right? You could have just stuck in the internal audit bit and not worked out how to get involved in more interesting things. At the end of that 3 years, is that when you go to Cambridge?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. I went to California for a bit, for 6 months. I fell in love with someone.
Oh,
I had a
funny how that happens.
It's weird, isn't it? Like before you know it, you're just making all these decisions. But I was young. I was in my early 20s. I thought, God, there's got to be more to life than Lloyd's of London insurance, which is wonderful, by the way. It's a great business. But for me at the time, for a variety of factors, the culture was quite heavy, if I'm honest, at that point. You've probably read some horror stories about Lloyd's of London, but it was a heavy drinking culture. I think that you'd be hard pushed to meet people that wouldn't admit that.
You've also gone through uni. You've gone through to Durham University, which has a good social scene as well.
I've done enough drinking at uni, effectively, or certainly enough partying good times. And so to be told, hey, here's a corporate card, crack on at the age of 21 and just sit in a pub all day waiting for brokers to come for you, to me just wasn't intellectually stimulating.
Like there's a novelty that wears off pretty quickly.
Very quick. Although for some people it never wears off, and
honestly, some of the geese that I see that have been there 30 years, I just think, how are you still alive? Like if I have a beer now, the next day I feel like I can feel it, and I see these guys 10, 12 pints a day,
and then doing business as well.
Wild,
doing the business.
Wild.
It's
anyway,
impressive.
so you're like, that isn't quite for me. You meet this person.
No longer together. We split up a long time ago, but it was very formative in that I think it gave me a lot of confidence to go, this is me. I want to go out and I want to explore the world. So I managed to tie in, because I probably didn't have quite as much verve back then to say, right, I'm completely binning everything off and I'm just following this person to California. I got a pre-MBA program at Stanford, which is an amazing university. So I managed to...
just go on the internet and be like...
Pretty much.
Stanford.
I started Googling.
Really?
Not joking. Summer programs in America. So Yale have one, Harvard have one, Chicago Booth School of Management had one, and Stanford had one. I thought, I'm going to California anyway.
Yeah.
Let's explore Stanford. And this was in 2015. Yeah. And at the time, I had no idea what Silicon Valley was. Yeah. Not a clue.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't, because you did geography at uni and then photocopied things in insurance.
That's it. And went straight into the city, which, trust me, as you know, was not people in bowler hats making millions of pounds a year. It was just quite a very small institutional thing. Yeah. So I went out to Stanford and met some amazing people.
So you just applied. How long did it take until you were on the plane from applying?
So I quit that job, Aspen, in... I want to say January of that year.
The New Year gloom.
That's it.
I'm done with this.
Exactly. It's like a Monday gloom for 3 months. Yeah. And then I went out to California, I think in March, April.
Okay.
Toured around, went to Las Vegas, had fun, just saw a bit of America, saw a bit of the West Coast, did a bit of a road trip. Brilliant. And then I started Stanford, I think in July. And was
what were you
there for
studying?
6 days. General management. So it was amazing. It was pitched as a pre-MBA program. They no longer run it. I've looked into it because I wanted to recommend it to so many people, but it was human resources, operations, sales, negotiation, crammed into 6 weeks.
And do you get a loan to do that? How does it work?
You can get a loan.
Yeah.
You can get a loan.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to be able to self-pay it at the time.
Hey, because you've been working as well. Yeah,
Been
fine.
working, and to be honest, my parents have always been amazing, very fortunate, saying, "Hey, as long as you're in full-time education, we're happy to help out where we can," which is very, very sweet.
Yeah.
So they helped me out for that as well, and
mad. You
met
must have
some
been looking
amazing
around
people.
like.
Yeah, it's called the Knight School of Business, which is named after the guy that founded Nike shoes.
Yeah, Phil Knight.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So it was amazing, like the whole.
How different was the university? Did you say it was Harvard?
Stanford.
Stanford. How different was Stanford to Durham? Not like the weather, because I know how different that is.
Yeah, I started to look healthy, which was amazing.
Yeah. But how different was it, just in terms of like how it made you feel?
Oh, such a good question. It made me feel like there was a world that was bigger than what I already knew, which might sound very vague.
No, I know what you mean.
But it opened my mind up totally to different ways of working, different people, different ways of living. A lot of the kids I met were unbelievably smart people doing engineering and whatever they might be doing. Building drone companies at a time where drones, people were like, what the hell's a drone? But they were also kids that enjoyed surfing. Yeah. And they were kids that enjoyed trail running. Yeah. And they were people that enjoyed skateboarding because you're in California. Yeah. So you've just got a totally different culture surrounding work, which is good.
You mentioned the drinking thing before. Did the drinking thing shock you as well? Because one of the things when I moved to the US is I realised that British people are drunk. Fundamentally, especially like if you think of the early 2010s, like drinking was less of a thing when I went to the US on the whole, right? People still went out and got drunk and whatever, but I just found that there was less of that like daily obsession with drinking. Did you find that, or was it because it was a uni everyone was getting drunk?
I mean, it's also California, so there's other things on offer that people would enjoy.
Yeah, true.
It was less obsessively with drinking to get.
There's other habits as well.
Other habits, and people are more actively outdoors.
Exactly.
They had much more of a. As I mentioned trail running and surfing, but people quite look forward to getting up for those things. Whereas in the north of England, on a gloomy day,
what can you do?
And Netflix wasn't even a thing when I was there. Really, I was watching Downton Abbey on DVD. I mean, that's where I was.
I love that you were watching Downton Abbey on DVD.
I was. It's a true story.
Did you find that? And I always find this bit interesting. And I talk about this quite a bit, the difference in just the level of ambition as a result of the scale of America. Because I find that in the US, the horizons are just that much broader because there's that much more to go after.
It's a massive internal market. I think that it probably relates to things or have spoken about before, but I think Americans' tolerance to risk is a lot higher. Yeah. And so when I went there in 2015, I didn't really know what to expect, but I naively thought companies like Facebook and LinkedIn, these amazing consumer-facing brands that I'd heard of and begun to use as a teenager, were still sort of 15 people in a room wearing T-shirts. Yeah. And then you go out there and, wow, just the energy, the atmosphere, and the infrastructure that's been put in place by Silicon Valley firms.
So as part of the placements, did you get to go to any of those businesses?
Yeah, they took us to Google, and that was very special. Very, very special place to go, and very inspirational, genuinely. And I don't say that lightly, to see how naively, again, in my head, I thought, if you don't go get a degree and work in the city, in London or probably on Wall Street, you're kind of never going to make it. And then that leads you to, what does make it even mean? It was amazing to go to meet interesting people that were just dressed normally, that were from diverse backgrounds, that were just passionate and interested in what they did. And that's what the West Coast taught me.
So whatever happened to that romantic endeavour in the end, it actually just caused you to look at life. Because the thing is, if you hadn't have done that, there is a fair chance that you would still be working at an insurance company.
Definitely.
Like, let's face it.
Yeah.
Because you're onto a good thing. You're in a great grad program. You got a good degree, great grad program.
I got into underwriting.
Rather than being that an internal thing. You'd probably still be working in insurance.
There's a good chance.
There's a good chance at least.
There's a good chance, or at least I would have done something else. I would have done my master's anyway.
Yeah.
But I came back to the UK following that, and I went to Cambridge to study something called real estate finance, which is something that is completely a bit left of field. Yeah. Because I was then gearing up to try to work out, I love the bits of geography I love are cities ultimately and how people live. Yeah. Okay. Call that real estate. Yeah. And then the finance element gives me an idea of, well, how do you commercialize those things that I love? And I had a friend of mine that did that course and then went off to work for a real estate private equity group called Blackstone, which no doubt you've heard of. And yeah, James is a great guy, and he recommended I do that. Okay. Knowing a bit about me.
We often have this. That there's an individual in somebody's career that changes the direction that they go in. So James was your
for that course specifically, but there's been a few. I mean, going to Cambridge, that blew my mind. So
yeah, so you've been uni here, uni America, and then you come back to Cambridge. Why didn't you take the inspiration from being at Stanford and go into industry there?
In the States?
Yeah, what brought you back to Cambridge?
Hard to get a visa is the
God's honest truth. So you want to study like a study visa?
It was too short a program to need. Actually, I had an H1B1 visa, which gave me, I think, 6 months, but I don't think that was good enough for employment.
So you need to be sponsored.
You'd need to be sponsored.
Fine.
And at the time, I still had a chip on my shoulder for not getting to Oxford the first time. So I thought, right.
It's funny how these things stay with us.
Let's slay a demon. And my maths GCSE was my weakest GCSE. We're going back, there's like a 10-year gap. But I was thinking, right, I need to prove I can do something mathematical, hence finance, and I get to go to Cambridge. Let's just do this.
When you got back to Cambridge, were you shocked, having got accustomed to what life was like in the US a little bit? Was that a bit of a bump coming back?
Not in the way that I think maybe you feel like it would have done, because actually the caliber of person intellectually I'd met at Stanford was very akin to the caliber of person I'd met at Cambridge or was meeting.
It's best of the best, these places.
Yeah, it's epic. But not just caliber intellectually. It's like, you know, when you go to school, like you've got your sort of head boy character. 1 in 2 people you meet is like a head boy or head girl character. Of course they are. So they're not just brilliant brains, but like they're great sports people. They're brilliant
all-round
actors.
package.
They're great singers.
Did you feel out of place in any of those places? Not that I'm suggesting for any reason you should be, but I've been in rooms before where I'm like, I have no idea.
That's something people have discussed, and I know you have too. And the imposter syndrome is definitely real. And you're sat there in these rooms. I always, joke. I got a very good group of friends from that masters. I went to one of their weddings last year in France, and we were I was definitely the more artsy, believe it or not, of the students. So I could write pretty well, and I could pitch quite well and talk quite well. But when it came to doing a discounted cash flow model or building, projections on real estate cash flows years and years in advance, I couldn't do it. To this day, I would really struggle to do that anything like as proficiently as them.
Isn't it funny?
So you come together like a sort of super group, like...
Yeah, that's what it has to be. That's a team.
That's it.
So then you're at Cambridge. How long was that? So the Stanford thing was 6-ish months, 7 months, whatever?
There was actually only 6 weeks, the Stanford thing. So it left a very profound impression on me in a very short amount of time. Cambridge was only 9 months.
Okay.
I mean, it was at Cambridge where, having had applications denied to... Having had interviews, by the way, to places like Blackstone and McKinsey, sort of top-tier employment firms, I went to an amazing talk at my college at Cambridge called What's Missing from the MBA Syllabus. Okay. And that's where I met a really inspirational lady called Martina King, who Martina founded, or didn't found, she was the CEO of Featurespace, which is a machine learning company that's focused on AI, fraud detection, pardon me, and anti-money laundering. And I met Martina at that talk because she was delivering the talk.
Wasn't Featurespace headquarters up Cambridge sort of?
That's it.
Where was it, in Cambridge?
Cambridge-based.
There you go, okay.
And so she just trotted down the road from the Science Park in Cambridge, Milton Road, I think it is, and was delivering this talk. And I was just so taken by her story. She was a former MD at Yahoo and then went into CEO of Featurespace, which at the time was about 40 people. Yeah. And was founded, I think, in 2007 or 2009. Like that,
Did she stay the whole time, all the way through to the acquisition?
I think she joined in 2012. Don't quote me on that. But then she's still CEO to this day. That's it. And I went up to her after she delivered that talk and said, "Hey, I'm Conrad. I've just come from Stanford. I'm doing my master's here." Her whole thesis was that sales is missing from the MBA syllabus. We don't teach people how to sell. Nope. And she thinks that in the UK, sales is this dirty word.
Agreed.
And I thought, wow, that's pretty ballsy coming to Cambridge, this centre of academic excellence, but just telling it how it is and how she sees it as someone that's trying to be a captain of British industry. And I was really taken by that. And so I had an interview with a couple of VC firms the next day, the next week. So I sent her a note saying, hey, I would love your advice on what to do with these firms because I know you've taken some VC money with Featurespace. She wrote me back a lovely email, which ended with, and if you'd ever be interested in joining our band, let me know.
Oh, what an email to get.
It was a brilliant email. And
where were you when that email came in?
I was in my room at Cambridge thinking, wow, Blackstone didn't send me an email like that. McKinsey certainly didn't send me an email like that. And I miss the technology side of stuff that I was doing at Stanford and the people I was meeting and that Silicon Valley vibe. Let me see if I can replicate a bit of that at Cambridge and with Featurespace. So I took the job.
How amazing that all those things like came together.
It did. And it was a lesson to me that by putting yourself out there a bit and thinking atypically, you know, I'm the only person, maybe one other person from my masters of probably 100 people on that masters at Cambridge that I'd say is not working in finance or real estate. It's me and probably two other people.
Yeah, mad.
It was a very small
so
thing.
when you then go to, what was the job at Featurespace first up?
Sales.
So you were in a sales role.
Third ever salesperson.
Amazing. So when you went in there, did you and her keep that connection? Because it's one of those things, oftentimes if you get introduced to a business via the person who leads the business, it's a relationship that you want to hold on to, but people will try and draw it away from you.
Yeah, and what you've just described happened twofold. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've got so much to thank Martina for and giving me that opportunity and letting it grow. Yeah. And I think that as businesses get bigger, and you would know this, you know, I'd love your view on it. You're someone that's growing a very successful business at the moment. How do you stop those things from happening?
It's really hard because most of the hires that we've made have come from like personal recommendations. It's like I'll recommend somebody, but then I'm their boss's boss.
Okay.
But I still want them to give me a buzz whenever they need something. So you've just got to categorize stuff. If it's something that has to go through formal channels, then just leave it there. But I like everything being quite wide and flat. It's also why I don't want a huge business.
I see.
Do you know what I mean? I don't want a 500-person business because it then becomes a case of managing all of those sorts of things rather than actually just letting people get on with it.
My experience is that maybe you agree or don't, but when Featurespace hit 100 people, and Martina was very candid about this at the time. She said things are going to change, you know, and she was absolutely right. Things had to become more process driven. Plus, when you'd sold to HSBC, IATA, TSYS, these are massive groups that need proper processes around them because when something goes bang in the night and they give you a call, you've got to be able to really justify it, and you've got to analyse what's in those statements of work pretty closely.
So you joined when what? There was 40, 50 people? Something like that? It doubles pretty quickly to 100. Yeah. So when you joined, you were in a just sales individual contributor role. When you left Featurespace, how long were you there and what was the job when you left?
I was there 4.5 years and I was...
That's the first place you've been, like, because you've been doing studying and various bits and bobs, like 4.5 years is a decent slog for your first, like...
But it was great. They gave me everything I needed. I'll never forget. I mean, it was an absolute game changer. Did you move to Cambridge?
No,
I did. They had a small London office on Regent Street.
Oh, epic. So there's this little group of you just doing your thing.
10 of us. 10 of us or 12 of us. And talk about people that inspire you or help you. There's a chap called Luke Reynolds who I followed to Mastercard. And Luke was the chief product officer of Featurespace. So he's joined from Lloyd's Banking Group and Call Credit. And Luke's always looked out for me and took me on that journey. You know, when he joined Mastercard, having left Featurespace, he gave me a call a year later and said, you know, not pushing you in any direction, but Mastercard's an interesting spot. Let's have a think about it. Yeah.
Epic. So 4.5 years of Featurespace. Did you go straight to Mastercard from Featurespace?
I did. Yeah. They put me on gardening leave for 3-4 months. But then
was it in the summer?
It was not. It was in the middle of COVID. And it was pretty brutal. And I was there for 3 months, feeling a bit useless because I was frankly overpaid while the country couldn't work to just sit around. But
how did it feel to leave them?
Gut-wrenching at the time.
Because it's given you a lot, that
given
business.
Me everything, like in some respects, in terms of everything's a bit much, but it gave me a huge amount of confidence to go forth. And it was amazing. Like the first 2 years there was some of my happiest I've had working.
Really?
Yeah, because
you weren't photocopying things at an insurance company.
Photocopying things. And great birth, to say, I remember I sat down, there's a great sales guy there called James McDonald Turner.
Right.
He'd just gone to an event and he just handed me a stack of business cards and just said, just call each one of these people and just see where you get to.
Love it.
Now, to some people, that's their equivalent of photocopying. To me, that was like kid in a candy store.
Amazing.
This is going to be so much fun. So I did that, and for 2 years, I literally flew around the world preaching the gospel of machine learning for fraud prevention. And I just loved it. Thought it was the most fun thing anyone could do.
Because Featurespace was right at the front of innovation in that space.
It was.
So you're saying you're delivering messages that people are hearing for the first time.
Pretty much.
And that's a really powerful thing to do,
So
isn't it?
exciting and powerful. That's what going back full circle, what did Stanford teach me? It's like, cutting edge technology exists. And if I can get a job promoting cutting edge technology to make people's lives better, businesses more successful.
Yeah. Then it's not selling. Back to her point.
That's it.
It's actually just doing it for the right reason.
That's it.
So when
it's
you go to
consultative, it feels good.
Exactly.
It's helping people.
So when you go to Mastercard, I always say to people on this pod, what is the moment where you first saw a business card and were like, hell yeah? Was that when you joined Mastercard?
No.
Was it not?
The first time was when I had a club promotion business as a teenager with some of my old school friends. And I was, Conrad of Dimension Events, just the club promoter. And that was awesome.
And you were like, yeah,
I'm like a real guy. I'm like a human being. I can,
People are paying me to do things.
That's it. I felt real. And we'd invented that business.
Yeah,
That felt super exciting. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, Mastercard's an amazing brand.
So
it still blows my mind that we're like a top 10 brand in the world. We had our chief marketing officer stand up and said, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Shell, putting these logos up, and it's Mastercard.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a thing to be when you're a part of, to feel proud of. And it actually shows that they're doing a good job of how they engage with their team if you feel proud to be part of it. Because there's some people that work in big companies that just know that they're a number. Whereas I get the impression from the people that I know at Mastercard, and you've just validated it, that you feel like you're doing things for the right reason, for as a part of the company rather than a cog. So what was the job when you went in? Is similar to what you're doing now? Similar sort of thing? Getting people to use Mastercard's risk products, right?
Pretty much. That's it.
How do you feel about if you stop a little bit and think about it, the fact that you're in this industry? Does this industry excite you? Because I always say, I'm not following my passion working in KYB, but I'm letting my passion follow me. So I bring my energy to it. You never planned to do this.
No, and back to it, I'd probably rather be trying to manage Tottenham Hotspur as well as Ange Postecoglou at least.
Yeah.
Or coaching football. I love coaching football. I love playing guitar. There's all sorts of hobbies that I love to have that not necessarily are things that I'm doing every day in that way.
Yeah.
I get a huge amount of energy from people.
Yeah.
And my passion is in helping other people fundamentally. And so what's amazing about Mastercard is just the sheer scale of the business.
Yeah.
We work with 28,000 banks around the world. We process 65,000 transactions per second on card. We work in over 180 countries. We work with 1,800 acquiring banks.
Yeah.
We've built the most incredible network.
Yeah.
So what I've learned in over 4 years at Mastercard now is that if there is a bit of the world, back to my geography, that kind of interests you, you can find someone at Mastercard that does it. I remember walking around the hallowed halls of Angel Lane recently looking for a meeting room, and I bumped into a chap who was looking kind of, at some of the wires or whatever near the meeting room. I said, sorry, I'm Conrad. What do you do? I'm just really interested. He went, my name's, I can't remember the chap's name, forgive me, but he said, I look after all of our meeting rooms globally.
Right.
He said, I look after over 450 meeting rooms and all our locations. And I thought, wow, that's amazing.
You don't realise companies need those people,
that's
right?
So cool. There's a whole world behind the machine.
How many employees does Mastercard have? Do you know?
Just over 30,000.
Jeez.
Do you think that's a lot?
I don't know. Well, obviously it's a big number of people, but if you think about the output, the profit per head on 30,000 is wild.
Yeah, we got a
There's money coming
40%
through
net
the doors.
margin, So it's really impressive on over 20 billion of revenue. It's over 11 billion of profit, I believe.
Jeepers. So in terms of the thing, so if we go right into the specifics of you sell risk products to banks, what is that a Carter? What parts of?
So I've dabbled in quite a lot of the products.
So you can go into a bank and say, like, here's the suite of what Mastercard have. You're not product specific.
Believe it or not, that's what I'm about to be doing. So from the
wow.
1st of May, I'm starting a new gig at Mastercard, which
congratulations.
is, thank you very much. It's business development for all of our security solutions across Europe.
Wow.
But specifically focused in my case on UK and Ireland, because
Yeah.
it's a big enough market.
Yeah. So, and then those, did you say security solutions?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So that's fraud, that's anti-money laundering, that's identity,
Yeah.
that's any of our cyber products.
Yeah.
So it's being able to knock on the door of a bank, issuer or acquirer, or even sometimes large merchant, retail and commerce, and
okay.
go, hey, CTO of this large merchant, what are you guys currently doing around
Yeah.
DDoS attacks, for example?
Love it. And I assume that there's a lot that comes into Mastercard. Like, you're not getting 20 business cards
It's
from
not
an
like
event.
James, exactly.
No,
Yeah,
hello,
it's not
mate,
like
just
back in
wondering
the
if you,
day.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that comes in, right?
Huge amount of inbound.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's nice.
It is nice. It's a good position to be in. But one of the challenges we have is there's a lot of cooks.
Yeah.
So back in the day, take a features-based example, if I was given banks in Northern Europe, if any lead came in for a bank in Northern Europe, we had one product. It was called ARIC. We sold it.
Yeah.
Doesn't get much more complicated than that. If I tried to sell anything else, trust me, I'd get in trouble. I'd get a call from Martina.
Yeah.
At Mastercard, there are so many people that want to have a conversation when that lead comes in, because there's 5 or 6 different products minimum that just you can reel off quickly. So trying to triage and work out the right way to talk to that customer consultatively to give them the right tools is difficult.
So can you just say, like, I want to be the person that's the lead on this and I'll bring the right people in?
So that's exactly what this new role, I
amazing.
believe, or at least I'm led to believe, is about.
Yeah.
Let's hope. So
That's
I'm
exciting.
kind of the triage person for UK and Ireland SSO solutions for new business sales.
Epic,
Yeah, I think it's very exciting.
I'd say.
It's fun. Give it a go. Back to the journey. We don't know exactly where it's going, but it's an exciting place to be, because I'm hoping it gets to stimulate me academically, because there's a lot of different solutions, which frankly, I don't exactly know loads about right now. I know a lot about fraud and a lot know about money laundering, but if you said, Conrad, really explain the infrastructure of a cyber attack in great detail, I'd want to bring in an expert, which is exactly what this job's going to help me do.
Epic.
And that concludes another episode of Not What I Expected. I hope you loved that as much as I loved recording it. If you like it, let us know. If you don't, tell us how you think it could be better. Thanks and see you again.